Welcome to Denver Startup Week. I'm Tammy Dorr, President and CEO of the Downtown Denver Partnership and co-founder of Denver Startup Week. I'm so excited to bring all of these dreamers and visionaries together. Our country was built on capitalism, entrepreneurs drive that, and we could all use a little bit of dreaming right now. We're able to bring Denver Startup Week to this community thanks to our sponsors. Join me in thanking our 2020 Denver Startup Week sponsors. Our title sponsors, Downtown Denver Partnership, JP Morgan Chase, Prologis, and Zero. Our track sponsors who have made all of the great content you're hearing today possible. Battery 621 and the Public Works, Capital One Cafe, Colorado Lending Source, Friday Health, Quizlet, Exactly, Zayo, and Zestful. Our headline event sponsors are bringing the excitement of this week to you. Thank you to Wix, Kenzen, MAPR Agency, Obsidian HR, Kickstart Fund, Promontory Mortgage, Molson Coors, and Comcast. And finally, thank you to our partner and member sponsors. They're all listed on the screen. Please say thank you to these companies as you enjoy our virtual Denver Startup Week. And don't forget, use hashtag DenStartupWeek to share your experience and moments of inspiration on social media.
Hello, I'm Sal Gentili, CEO of Friday Health Plans, and we're proud to sponsor the growth track this year at Denver Startup Week. We're a company that just entered a rapid growth phase, so we felt it was particularly appropriate. When my business partner and I started Friday Health Plans 5 years ago, we knew we wanted to create a company that catered to people who bought their own health insurance. The Affordable Care Act was just getting going, and we saw an opportunity to serve a brand new market of health insurance consumers. Independent consultants, startup groups, gig workers, service industry workers, designers, creators, and other independent professionals, like many of you here today. We knew that if we built a health plan that was simple to buy, easy to use, had great customer service, and most of all was affordable, we could compete against the big insurance plans who only focus on serving big companies. After spending 5 years getting into the Colorado market and completing a successful proof of concept, we successfully closed a $50 million round of growth funding earlier this year. We're now about to expand to 3 additional states later this year, hire more than 400 employees to support our growth, and eventually be in more than 10 states by 2025. I wish each of you good luck in your startup and growth pursuits. And as you think about your upcoming health insurance needs, I hope you consider fellow growing startup Friday Health Plans. Open enrollment starts November 1st. Check us out at FridayHealthPlans.com.
All right. Can everyone see me? Type yes in the chat if you're able to see me. Great. Awesome. So my name is Josephine, and I'm here to talk to you today about the intersection of social media and design thinking. I'm super excited to be here at Denver Startup Week. It's so cool to be a part of the first ever virtual Denver Startup Week, to think that people could be joining from all over the world. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. All right. All right. Checking again. Can everyone see that, my screen now? All right. Wonderful. Okay, so as I said, I'm Josephine, and we're going to be talking today about this intersection of design thinking and social media. First, I just want to give a quick thank you to Denver Startup Week. I know that they have worked very hard to send out all the correct links and get us going on time and everything. And I really appreciate them and all the volunteers there. Let's get into it. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. This is a workshop, not a watch shop. So I really want you, I encourage you to be engaged today. And I know it's very easy to open up a webinar and continue on working, but we are going to have some activities to do throughout the presentation today. So open up a document, grab a piece of paper, and get yourself ready to really do some work today. We will also be using the chat throughout, but please save your questions for the end. I will not be moderating questions throughout the presentation, but at the end, I will be responding to questions. So just save your questions for the end, and I'll let you know when it's time for those. Okay, to get us started, I would like for you to type your role into the Zoom chat, your job title, whatever you most closely identify with. I know that as a freelancer or something that's a little more amorphous, you might have many job titles, but I want to get a sense of who all is here. Okay. Looks like we have some marketing, some landscaping, graphic designers, great, managers, awesome. Well, you are all in the right spot because this presentation is not made just for people who are in social media or even marketing or design thinking. It's made for anyone who's interested in this. So as I said, my name's Josephine. I am the founder of Dahlia Digital, which is a social media consulting business. We both teach businesses how to do their own social media, and we also offer full service social media consulting. I also work with Root Marketing and PR based in Boulder, Colorado. I've been doing social media for a little bit more than 6 years now. And it's kind of been a wild ride. 6 years in social media time and internet time is like forever. So much has changed from the first time that I picked up social media. And it's been a really cool industry to be a part of these past 6.5 years. I've worked both in-house at companies and also in a consulting role in many different industries. So I have a lot of experience in this area, and it's been really fun. Coming out of school, I majored in PR, and so I was able to really mesh the messaging training that I had during school with social media. It turns out it kind of works well together. So that's how I got into what I'm doing now. All right, we're going to start out with kind of a big question, and I want this to kind of like center our thoughts as we go through this session today. As people who create content, or maybe you're adjacent to people who create content, I think it's really important that we think first about our why, about why it is important that we add value to our followers' lives. And if you're not directly responsible for social media, think about it in whatever you do in the business and how that can contribute and filter down to your followers' lives, right? They could be your customers as well. But I think this is a driving factor for me when I think about why I do what I do. Social media is here to stay, whether we like it or not. And it can be a really tough place. It can be a really hard place to be at times. And I think that we need to be very conscious as content creators, as people who are a part of marketing teams or starting businesses, that we're actually adding some sort of value to our followers' lives. And notice I said followers there, because it's really easy to kind of shout at whoever's listening on social media, but I really want us to think consciously as an industry about what we're adding to our followers' lives via our social media content. Because if we continue to misuse social media like so many people are right now, then it's just going to be run into the ground and it's going to be a terrible place. And sometimes it kind of already is a terrible place. So we really want to, as an industry, help move away from that and really add value to people's lives. And I'm not talking about like actual money to their lives. It can be value in many different ways. But I want us to talk about or I want us to think about this question as we go through the other maybe more technical pieces here. Also today, our focus, just to kind of lay the groundwork here, our focus is going to be on your social media, not on your product or on your service. And the reason that I say this is because when you get into design thinking, it's meant to iterate and help progress products and services, right? And so I don't want us to get caught up in thinking about our product. We're thinking more about our social media today. And your social media presence is not your product. Your product or your social media presence is your whole enchilada. It's every part of your business. It's where you came from, when you started, why you decided to start your business, who started the business, who works there, what's the niche that you're filling. It's all of these pieces of your business. It's not just your product. Like if you were maybe, say, a hot sauce company and you only posted photos of your hot sauce bottle, that would be the most boring Instagram feed in the world, because people are there to see what makes the product special. And there are a million hot sauces in the world. The hot sauce needs the tortillas to go with it. It needs the vegetables to go with it. It needs the cheese and the cilantro, all the other things that make this enchilada what it is. And so I want to distinguish that right here at the beginning. I would think that if you are a social media manager or you're in marketing, you have a grasp of what social media managers do, but I think there's a common misconception that social media managers are here on the left, drinking our lattes, posting on Instagram, and we're actually just mad scientists. We are pushing buttons and changing content and posting it here and trying it again here and changing it and seeing what happens. And so I just like, if you aren't directly involved in your social media, I want to lay this out here at the beginning, that posting is not even half of the job. It's a very important part of it. And don't get me wrong, but it's not even the half of it. So I want us to think as we're going through, we're going to talk about posting. We're going to talk about the whole cycle of social media and how design thinking can apply to it. But I also want us to think more about not as much about posting and about the other pieces as well. All right, design thinking. What is design thinking? It can be kind of an amorphous term if you think about it. So I included this definition for those of you who might not be familiar with it. It's basically just a framework or a mindset that aims to center the user who you're talking to, making something for, or selling to. It's the person who's going to be using your product or following you on social media. It's really just flipping the way we think about things and thinking about the user first. And let me give you an example. So say Home Depot wants to commission you to make a watering can. And the traditional way of thinking about that might be, all right, so we have to make a watering can. What does a watering can look like based on what I already know? And we're going to make a watering can. It's going to hold this much. It's going to be this color. It's going to weigh this much. The handle's going to be this big. And then you make it and you put it out and you're done with it. In design thinking, you're going to start with the user. So you're going to say, I mean, you can probably tell I'm a plant fan. I have both inside plants and outside plants. So if Home Depot were to come to me as a user of a watering can, a proud owner of 2 watering cans, indoor and outdoor, they would say, okay, how are you going to be using this? And what are you going to be watering? And really thinking about me as a user when you're thinking about it from a design thinking method and creating it for me, not just creating it for whoever. You're really thinking more about the person that you're talking to. So you can probably see where I'm going with this. Social media is very similar. We are creating experiences for our users. We're talking to them and creating these experiences that they're having with our brands. So in that way, it really intersects design thinking and social media, and we can learn a lot about this intersection. A lot of design thinking methods, I mean, there's like endless amounts of design thinking methods. That we're going to explore a few today that I think have been particularly helpful for me when it comes to thinking about creating social media content. And it starts with you thinking of yourself as a designer. So I really like this quote, which is, "Everyone designs who devises courses of action aimed at changing existing situations into preferred ones." So that's kind of a fancy way of saying everyone is a designer. No matter what you do, you might have designer in your title and already own that. But if you're a founder, if you're a CEO, you're a CMO, a social media manager, you are a designer. You are a designer of an experience. And I think stepping into that mindset really helps. So we're gonna step into that mindset specifically for this, and maybe you'll continue with it after. All right. So today, I want you to leave this workshop with an understanding of why it's important to think from your followers' perspective, and also how to do it. So as we're creating content, how to create content for these people that you're trying to talk to, and how to center them in your strategy. It's easier than you think. All right, so time for the Zoom chat. I want you to answer in the chat, what is the best time to post on Instagram on a weekday? So think about what you know, maybe from your own social media usage, maybe from a client or something. So it looks like, okay, we have 11 a.m., 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., 3 p.m. Okay, so great guesses. There have been lots of studies about this. If you do a quick Google, there's a million results for it. All right, great. So as you can see, there's no real consensus here. There's no real consensus among our audience. So I'm going to leave you hanging on this question for just a minute. And we're going to go back to the watering can. As you can see, this is a quick Google search of watering can. There are so many different types for so many different types of people. And just like where these people are designing for their audience, they're designing for their user, there is no best way to make a watering can. It depends on who you're making it for. So you probably know where I'm going. There's no best way to do social media. There's no best time to post. It depends on your audience. And I saw a couple of people say that in the chat. So good job. But there is no like the best way. There is a best way for you to connect with your audience. There is a best time for you and your audience. And that's what I want to hone in on today, is that there is no the best way. A lot of times when we're thinking about social media, especially if it's not your job, if it's something, maybe you're founding a company and you're trying to handle your social media at the same time, and whew, good on you for doing that, because I know it's a lot of work. But I think it's really easy for us to Google things and come up with these absolutes when it comes to social media. If you look at social media YouTube videos, they'll tell you, you have to do this strategy and you have to do this method. And it's not true. It depends on your audience. And so that's why it's so important to get to know your audience, because if we don't start with getting to know our audience, then we don't know where we're going, and we're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. So while there is no best way to do social media, we can try to create methods and learn along the way in order to inform our content. And so I want to introduce you to the social circle. This is something that I've created based on a design thinking tool, which we'll go into in just a second. And this is a framework that I want you to explore your content through. Explore really not just your content, your whole social media process. So you're going from synthesizing content, or synthesizing analytics, we'll go into all of these pieces, to posting, to listening, and you're just going around and around and around. And it doesn't matter where you start, actually, it's a circle. So you're doing the same things over and over again, and you're learning along the way, you're changing along the way. Remember, we're mad scientists. So we want to change things, and we want to fail, and we want to succeed. And we'll get into that a little bit later. And I want to show you, on the left is the design thinking, it's called the loop, that is commonly used in design thinking. And it's very famous and very widely used to make and iterate products and services. So I want to show you kind of how I got to where I got to today based on these design thinking methods. If we go back to the watering can and we start at the left side of the loop, we're observing the gardener, the person using this watering can. Then we're reflecting on what we saw and reflecting on what we've understood. And then we're making, or maybe remaking or changing, and then going back and forth and back and forth, okay? So this endless loop of changing and iterating is awesome. You're able to really stay agile, and you're able to change things to fit your user. And in that same way, we're constantly re-envisioning and designing in this endless circle for social media. And so I want to go into these pieces to help you better understand this process. And I want to start with synthesize. The reason that I like to synthesize first, and again, this is a circle, you can start wherever works for you, but the reason I like to synthesize first is so that our content is better informed. And you know, one data point doesn't say it all when it comes to social media analytics. Like I put on this slide a screenshot from Sprout Social. And if you are a marketing person, you've probably seen something similar to this in your social media reporting. This is what social media marketers are being given by any given social media scheduling tool today. You can see there's the audience, there's the growth, the golden child of social media engagement rate, all these numbers, which are super important, but are not the whole story. And I want to emphasize, so the word synthesize, it can sound kind of buzzwordy, right? It kind of sounds like synergy or something like that. But synthesize actually just means to combine a number of things into a whole. And that's what we're doing when we're looking at social media analytics. We're not only looking at these numbers, we're also looking at what people are saying to us. If we listen, then they're telling us what they want and what they need. So we're able to create a better picture of our social media follower. And you know, this data coming from Sprout Social is quantitative data. So we have the numbers, which are great, but we also need the qualitative piece of it. And that can come from so many places. If you do interviews with your clients, maybe pulling in some of that, maybe just talking to people on social media, getting their feedback. And so I want to introduce to you the design thinking concept, or reintroduce, if you already know about it, of empathy mapping. And empathy mapping is a really powerful tool when it comes to social media, in my opinion, because you're able to put yourself in your followers' shoes. And in marketing, we often call this our persona, something like this. But I really like how design thinking puts the user at the center and also thinks about empathetically. So as you can see there, your customer, your client is in the middle, but today we're talking about our follower. So our follower is in the middle. And then we go through what they think, say, feel, and do. So you put yourself in their shoes and try to think as empathetically as possible about what are they dealing with. And these really help you especially when you are not your ideal client or your ideal customer. So if you're posting, like I'm a social media manager, if my client was a tractor company, then I will probably never buy a tractor, although maybe when I get a Dahlia farm one of these days, but I'll probably never buy a tractor. And so I really have to put myself into the shoes of a farmer to understand, what do they think, say, feel, and do? So we're going to do this with your social media followers. So I don't want you to think too hard about this. Don't get too in your head, but I want you to pull out your Google Doc, pull out your piece of paper, whatever you want to write on. And we're going to take 5 minutes and you can create your own empathy map. And I put this prompt up here. I actually empathy mapped a person who might be interested in attending this session. So you can see Sean has heard of design thinking, but wants to know more. He's a social media manager, and I kind of walked through what he might think, say, feel, and do. So now I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Pick something, one of your customers, and followers, again, followers, and name them, and then go through this process with them. And if you don't have a good idea of your followers, maybe you're not completely responsible for your social media, just think of someone you might want to attract. But I find it really helps to think of a real person. So if you have a friend who you're like, they might want to buy my product, empathy map them. Okay, so I'm gonna stop talking. I'm gonna play some music, and I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to start on this empathy map. And don't think too hard about it. Just go. I'll let you know when we're halfway done, and then when we have 30 seconds left. And I'm gonna play some music. All right, you have about 2.5 minutes left. About 1.5 minutes more. 30 seconds left. So go ahead and wrap up. See if you can get one thing in each quadrant. All right. Nice. Okay. So now that we have put ourselves in our followers' shoes, we've learned more about them just by thinking empathetically. I want you to take that same person and write out their daily schedule. Just one day on a weekday. Take 2 quick minutes to write out and think about, like, for example, one of my clients, we're selling to chefs. And so chefs have a very different schedule than a typical 9-to-5 person does. And so if you have any of those sorts of qualifications that you need to think about, put them in this schedule. And I want you to just take a quick second to write out their daily schedule. So I'm gonna set the timer for 2 minutes and just go ahead and write their schedule. You can be as specific as you want, like when they brush their teeth, or if they watch Netflix at night, or when they take their kids to school. Try to get into their schedule, into their mind. All right. About 20 seconds left for that. All right. So as you can tell, we've been able to, or I guess first I should say, good job. This is not easy, and especially in the time span that I've given you. So good job on thinking and like getting into your followers' brains, into their habits, into their schedules. This information is so valuable. And as I mentioned, this is the qualitative information that you're able to pair with the quantitative information that we talked about from social media analytics. So now I want to ask you, what is the best time to post on Instagram on a weekday for your follower? So I'm asking the exact same question I asked at the beginning, but go ahead and type your answer in the chat. Now, what do you think is the best time to post on Instagram on a weekday for your follower, knowing what they think, say, feel, and do, and also what their schedule might be? And we're putting ourselves in these people's shoes, and we might not always be right, but it's worth it to at least understand and then test. And that's the piece that we're going to get into next. Okay, so it looks like we all have different answers, and your answer could have been the same from the beginning, but notice how it's potentially different or potentially the same. But now we have more information, and now we know a little bit more about our followers. So we're able to make a better, more qualified guess or prediction at when we think they'll be online. So this is synthesizing. We're taking the information that we know. This was qualitative synthesizing. And I would highly recommend everyone do multiple empathy maps for different personas within your company, because we definitely don't want to just have one person that we're talking to. But this is how you synthesize. So we've just done the first part of the social circle. So the next piece is posting. And like I said, posting is not even half of it, but also a really big part of it. And so I want to give you a framework, a design thinking kind of mindset to think about your content as you're posting. Remember, we're mad scientists and we are always experimenting. And so I find it really helpful to think about your content as a prototype. Like, think of it as a draft. Even if I just use the word draft, it makes me feel less like intimidated to post it out in the world, because especially if you have a lot of followers, it can be really intimidating or scary. But we're thinking of our posts as prototypes, so we're not as afraid to fail. And in thinking about this, I was like, what is failure on social media? You know, there is really no failure except for companies. I can think of a few examples of companies who've like put their foot in their mouth, but that's sort of a values thing. I'm talking about if you post something and it hears crickets and no one likes it, you learn something and you move on. And that's one of the coolest pieces of social media. It is one of the quickest and cheapest ways to test new ideas. So why not use it? And in thinking about posting also, it's easy to get tied up in these ideas that you have that you're like so excited to try. Maybe you've made this like shiny video and you post it and you don't get any response. That can suck, but also you have learned from it. It's a huge growth edge and a piece of information to be able to synthesize. And those pieces need to be pulled through in your analytics of not just these are the highest engagement photos, but here's the lowest engagement and how can we learn from this? So I really want you to think of yourself as you're posting as just you're experimenting and you're doing it responsibly, but you're experimenting, and it's a really cool place to be able to do that. So now that we have gone through synthesize, we've made our guess about when to post and talked about experimenting and posting, how do we create content for our personas? It can be easy to talk about them, but how do we create content for them? And the answer is simply that we listen. People are on social media to give you feedback. That's the beautiful thing about it. You don't even have to ask for it and they'll give it to you. You can see here, I've included a few screenshots from a campaign that I did when I was on the marketing team at Lucky's Market. Shout out to all the Lucky's Market people. This was qualitative information we got from our posts during the campaign. And you can see these are overwhelmingly positive, but like the person in the top right said, I have to drive out of my way to shop at your store 40 minutes one way, but I don't care. I love using your reusable produce bags. And this is super valuable information, not only for you to inform your future marketing campaigns, but also for your operations teams. People are here telling you what they want and what they don't want also. And just a caveat to these beautiful comments, like you never get someone saying, love this content. I wanted to say, girl, I bet you are a social media manager, because that is just like such a shiny, beautiful comment. But a lot of times you're getting negative feedback, and that stuff is arguably even more valuable than just the shiny, nice, positive feedback. So on the left here, I've listed a few ways to ask for feedback through polls or DMs, user-generated content, the posts that you're being tagged in on social media, maybe when people are checking in at your location. So if you haven't tried any of these, like the Instagram question sticker is awesome. You can learn so much from that sticker about your audience. Maybe screenshot this and try a few ways and integrate it into your social media strategy. Because again, these people are here ready to talk to you. You just need to listen to them and also maybe even ask for their feedback. If they're not regularly commenting on your content, ask them. If you're, again, a hot sauce company and you're trying to decide whether to launch a cilantro flavored hot sauce or a tomato flavored hot sauce, ask people in a poll on social media. And I think the more our entire team, our entire company can understand these tools, like I really want to applaud the people who are not directly involved with social media for being here, so that you can know that these tools exist, so that you can ask for them in whoever's doing your social media, or do them yourself. Because if you're not in it in the day-to-day, if you're not doing social media in the day-to-day, it can be easy to just get lost in the tools. I swear every day I have a client saying, should we try this new tool? Or like the day after Instagram Reels was released, clients saying, should we use this now? And we're all mad scientists here. We're just experimenting. And so I want you to be empowered knowing that these tools exist, and use them when you're trying to make decisions within your business and also within your marketing team. And I also want to say that listening continues to build that empathy that we started back in the empathy mapping, getting to know your follower, getting to know your persona that you created of them. It really helps you to understand more about their likes and dislikes, and then cater your content and cater your business operations to them. I want you to make sure that there is some kind of line of communication, that is, between whoever is doing your daily social media and your operations, and just your full team, marketing, everyone in your company. Because the people who are in your DMs, direct messages, the people who are answering your daily engagement, they're getting so much qualitative information. And so you definitely want to be listening to them and knowing that that information exists. So I would encourage you to talk to whoever is doing your daily social media, if it's an agency or someone on your team, and ask them to give you a report of the sentiment just based on what they're seeing, and also the qualitative information they're receiving, what people like, what people don't like, what people are complaining about, that sort of thing. So we just went through the whole circle. We went from synthesizing our information to figuring out what time we need to post. And now it's time to listen. And you can take that piece of information. I mean, this is the piece of information being your time that you decided might be the best for your follower, and test it and listen to see what happens. And it might be that nothing really happens, that your engagement is the same, your reach is the same when you're posting at this time versus this time, it's the same. And then you don't have to worry about it anymore. But it's great to test these things to know and to understand why or how they can inform your social media strategy. So this whole framework I have found has really helped me to think of social media honestly, and just like taking myself a little less seriously, and thinking of it as this, I mean, circle, and thinking back to the IBM loop. You're thinking about this endless like back and forth, or round and round, of creating and listening and posting, and not feeling so tied down by like having to have this beautiful shiny piece of content that is ready for everyone's eyes. And typically those don't do as well anyway. I can think of a time when I posted, I posted many expensive videos that, were like thousands of dollars that we paid for. And then I found a photo that someone tagged of us of a blurry, it was a photo of a blurry photo of a pizza shaped like a heart. And I reposted that, and it got so many likes. And that's the perfect example of like, you just never know what's going to happen. And so why take yourself too seriously? Just test it and see. As long as the content is on brand and feels good to you, then test it. So that's what I really want you to take away from this today. So now I would love to hear your questions. I also have links of where to find me. My website and email are here, and also I am on LinkedIn, so feel free to connect with me there. But if you'd like to, just go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, and I'll see. I'll get to however many I can. I think we have about 10 minutes left here, so I'd love to answer them. So it looks like It looks like we have a question already from Sydney about how to take this into account for worldwide followers. So it sounds like you might be posting and trying to get in front of people who are all over the world. And I think thinking of, obviously posting in their time zones. So like if you're posting for India, it would be like completely opposite of the US. So thinking about their normal hours, but I would use the empathy mapping tool to understand them more and understand their schedule and their wants and needs and all of those things. And then also couple that with your analytics. So looking at when your followers are online, looking at, you can see that natively within Instagram or Facebook. So I would definitely encourage you to look at those. Yeah. So it looks like, do you have a favorite social media management portal you like to use, or do you individually go to each account? Portal, okay, so you mean a social media scheduling tool, I'm guessing. If you want to say, yeah, okay, great. Yes, and this has been like a lifelong struggle for me. And by lifelong, I mean 6 years. But I've tried virtually all of the tools out there, and Sprout, in my opinion, has everything I need. Again, this is very individualistic depending on the user, but I just recently signed on with the agency tool with Sprout, and they have, I was really concerned with first comment, where it automatically posts all your hashtags on Instagram, and they have that, and great analytics, beautiful shiny analytics reports. So that I would definitely recommend. Hootsuite is a good starter one too, but it depends. Generally speaking, those two, Hootsuite and Sprout, are both good for Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. But it kind of depends on the platforms that you're looking for. If you're like really into YouTube and posting a lot on YouTube, I'm not your girl because I haven't really experimented too much with YouTube. But yeah, I would highly recommend Sprout. All right. Any other questions? Oops. So I'm going to stop sharing. Great. So I can see the Q&As. All right. So one thing that comes to mind is, do you ever find that empathy maps are limited? Yes. Okay. Great questions here. I'm gonna go to the most informative failure first, because I definitely have a lot of them, and that's an awesome question. I would say my most informative failure, and this was sort of a bigger failure, was when there was a product that the company that I was working for was selling that was a little on the cultural appropriation side of things, and we posted about it, and that did not go over well, and we kind of got attacked online, and we ended up pulling the product from our product line. And our response to that as a social media team was to try to make the Twitter follower understand first why we had it, instead of just conceding and saying, actually, we kind of messed up here. We probably shouldn't have this caricature of a person in our store. And so that turned into a huge Twitter like failure, which I had never really had before, but it was super informative, and it really, really helped my future answers to people who have questions about like kind of iffy subjects within a company. So I also got a question about good social tools for use with LinkedIn. And I definitely would recommend Hootsuite and Sprout for LinkedIn as well. I think the biggest thing for LinkedIn is that people forget to use hashtags, and you don't want to litter your feed or litter your posts with hashtags on LinkedIn like you do on Instagram. But those are very helpful when it comes to LinkedIn, and Sprout and Hootsuite are great for those. You can pretty much do everything. I don't think you can do ads within either of those if you're doing LinkedIn advertising, but that's kind of newish anyway. Okay, how do you deal with trolls? Whew, that's definitely like probably spurred by what I was just talking about. I guess I didn't call this person a troll because I respected her view of questioning us about the product that we were selling, but it did feel like a troll situation. And you can't really do much with a troll. You have to just be very open. I had multiple experiences like this. And you have to be very open about the thing that they're asking you about and address that. And then know that it will blow over. Like if you need to make changes, be honest about the changes you need to make. If your branding is culturally appropriating something, or something like that, where you're like, oh, actually, we do need to look at this, tell them that. And even if you think they're being ridiculous, or you can't really even talk to them, concede a little bit. And I find that really helps, that you're able to kind of level with them and empathize, because these people who are quote unquote trolls, you just have to remember that they probably have a really hard time too. And that's why, they're on here trolling you. So just think about that as you're responding to quote unquote trolls, because it is very tough as a social media manager to deal with that. But I would say get a bigger group involved and get as many perspectives within your company as you can to weigh in on that, because you can definitely get very in a like a one-track mind when it comes to that. So yeah. Any other questions? I think we had one more that was about so empathy maps being limited or limiting for your social media strategy. I think that is a great question. And again, you don't want to pigeonhole the people that you're talking about, but you want to map out multiple perspectives and multiple people. So keep that in mind. I would do at least 3 empathy maps for your business, because you don't want to just be talking to Sean, to use my example. You want to be talking to this other person and keeping all of these people in mind. You don't have to make 10 of them, but I also think it's good to keep in mind that empathy maps change. So keep them updated, or at least updated in your mind, to be able to update them based on what you're hearing from your followers. And then you'll be more able to understand their perspectives, or your followers' perspectives, and it won't be limiting. But just keep your eye out. So I've also put my website and LinkedIn in the chat here, as well as if you're interested in learning more about design thinking. This IBM Design Thinking course is awesome and free right now. They've opened it up and it's completely free. It takes about 2 hours to go through, but I've found it super helpful and really engaging. Not surprising, because they were designing it for the user. So I would highly recommend checking out those, and get in touch with me if you want to learn more. But thank you so much to Denver Startup Week for having me. I'm so honored to be here, and thank you, all of you, for spending your time with me. I really appreciate it, and I hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of Denver Startup Week. There's so many other great sessions, so go out there and go check them out.